Star vs. the Forces of Evil is an incredibly politically driven show. One of the biggest plot points in the series is the relationship between and the class divide among the monsters and humans. This can be taken as an allegory for pretty much any class divide that exists in our history, whether it be the colonization of Native Americans, the civil rights movement of the mid-20th century, or even the acceptance of homosexuality. It is easy to look at the prominence of these themes and say that the central political message is a push for the integration of liberal ideals into our society. However, I believe that Star vs. Forces of Evil strives for something deeper, and to prove that, I will first explain how the show's narrative could be taken as an argument against liberals. If the society of the humans is supposed to be a representation of a society that is deprived of and in need of a newer, more progressive social structure, then Star, being the character that pushes for the integration of these liberal ideals, can be seen as a character that represents liberals themselves. Therefore, all this show really needs to do to demonstrate the failings of liberals is to show Star fail. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the beginning. As any Star vs. the Forces of Evil fan will tell you, the show really doesn't get good until the latter part of Season 1. But I believe that sudden change in quote-unquote quality is really just a change in tone, and that the tone of the latter half of Season 1 and beyond is more suited to the taste of the majority of its fans, instead of the difference being in the competency of its production. The early episodes of Star vs. Forces of Evil have a childish aura to them, and they tell the story of two inseparable best friends battling goofy-looking monsters with smiles on their faces. The prominence of childishness starts to disappear around episode 6A, titled Muberty. As the title suggests, the episode is sort of a rapid transformation for Star, as she goes through what is obviously a play on words of puberty, representing a changing point in her character. It is immediately after this in episode 7A, titled Lobster Claws, where we are first introduced to an idea atypical of children's stories, that the villain is not always as bad as they seem. It is here where the show starts to present itself as a more mature tale, as it makes Buff Frog an actual character, brings more prominence to a villain that actually seems threatening, and starts to delve into the history and social structure of Muni. I think the juxtaposition before and after Muberty indicates the way the story is told. There's an extra effort in the way of the producers to make sure that we absorb the story mainly from the perspective of Star. Any given episode either shows us events as Star experiences them directly, or events that Star will learn about in the near future. From a storytelling standpoint, this is a smart choice as it allows us to identify with Star and experience the story through her limited worldview. However, the greater purpose of doing this is to acknowledge that Star's worldview is limited. This gives us insight into what I believe to be Star's number one flaw, her naivety. Take the episode The Bog Beast. In this episode, we see Star's father River the way Star sees him, as a delusional idiot wasting her time and taking her away from more pressing matters. However, the end of the episode revealed that this was a test by River to teach Star patience. At this point in the episode, both Star's and our understanding of River changed simultaneously. The simple fact that this reveal happened just goes to show that Star doesn't really understand the complexities of her world, and this naivety has caused her to be rash in her attempt to spread her ideals. She is simple-minded, takes unnecessary risks, and ultimately fails. She doesn't use the proper channels because she doesn't know how they work, because she is naive, and that's why she can't change anything. At least, not yet. It is here that I think I should address what is probably the biggest and most interesting indicator of the show's final message, the character of Glossaryck. Glossaryck can be described as someone who is apolitical, someone who doesn't burden his mind with political questions and focuses on things that impact him more directly, such as his job. However, I think that Glossaryck is formed as apolitical values and molded his job in accordance to a realization that he has had over serving many queens. That is, that the newer generation will bring new perspectives and ideals that shape Muni for the better. Meaning that the politics of Glossaryck isn't that he doesn't care, but that he trusts the newer generation's perspective. He is old enough to see this pattern happen over and over again, where a new queen reforms Muni in a way that adjusts for the changing times, while an older queen argues against such change. Therefore, he has made it his job to lend his tools to the ideals of the newer generation, to be a mentor to help them grow their reach so that they can change the world, to essentially make them a queen, to make her less naive.
Every queen wants to tell me how to do my job. My training was different. You know what Glossaric hears? Me. I'm going to pull my mentor away from his job so I can be in the spotlight again. The only butterfly to leave me be was your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, Eclipsa, the Queen of Darkness, whose chapter, coincidentally, you left Star alone with when you pulled me into this wonderland of red tape.
Turn the page! Turn the page!
Oh, I'm gonna turn the page! I'm gonna turn the page!
You all did this because you don't trust me, and what's worse, you don't trust Star. My queen, your training was different because Star is different. You have to have faith in her to make choices that are best for her. And my job is to train Star to be a queen.
Ultimately, what I think the show is trying to say is that while Star's political ideals are necessary, her execution of those ideals are very limited. And all this leads to what I think the central conceit of the show is, a coming-of-age story for liberal youth. With every acknowledgement of Star's naivety follows growth in her understanding of the world. With every failure due to her recklessness comes experience into handling future situations. If I was to attach a political message to Star vs. the Forces of Evil, I would say that it agrees with liberals by acknowledging Star's ideologies as correct, but it cautions liberals to be fully informed about their issues so that they can execute on their attempts to fix the world with maximum efficiency. It's not a message against youth. Sure, youth and naivety are correlated in that older people have had more time to get less naive, but ultimately what it comes down to is taking those first steps. Even though it was circumstantial, Moon became a queen at a very young age and still managed to let her kingdom prosper. This goes to show that such growth is possible to accomplish at a young age, but not without work. So to put the central message of the show in a more condensed way that also works as a plug-in for Juni Taisen, since that's all I talk about now, I'll let Ox take it away.
First, step 1, I want to do the right thing. Then, I do the right thing. That's it. It's impossible for you to do the right thing, unless you make a conscious effort. People do wrong in the most offhanded ways. Just swept along, they fall into evil. Without purpose, without deliberation, without any thought at all. Then just like that, they're on the wrong path as if there were no choice.
Michi.
By contrast, no one ever says something like, without realizing it, I was just doing the right thing. Or how about, the next thing I knew I was doing good deeds. Or perhaps, I helped someone by mistake. Oopsie. You never hear that. And you never will. Without intent, there's no righteousness. There can't be, because righteous action requires righteous intent. You can't do the right thing unless you set your mind to do it. If your inability to do the right thing is causing you to suffer right now, that's likely because you're aware of the fact that you're not trying to do it. There are many reasons why one may not try to do good. A myriad of fears which might inspire hesitation. You can blame it on another person or on society as a whole. You can blame it on the age we live in or the cards you were dealt. But hear me. Those who are not doing the right thing must admit to themselves. It's not that they cannot do it, but that they will not do it. And you need not force yourself to do what is right. But don't fool yourself into thinking your failure to do so is because you're unable, but because you've made the choice not to even try. All righteous people decide to do right, and then they do it. The steps must be taken in that order. Worrying about the second step while you're still on the first is the height of calamity.